Hello, traders. This is General Romulus coming to you live from the Forum in ancient Rome. I see that those in the modern world are still on the march of war. I truly hope that your trading and investing has been going spectacularly well, as it has been for every member of the Romulus Legion. And we are excited to bring you a look of what's coming. Let's get to it. Before getting to it, I am General Romulus. I am not a stockbroker, financial advisor, and this video is only for educational, informational purposes only. Markets have been pulling back. Those who have been watching these videos know we put up our yellow line several months ago. We didn't know what the future held. Perhaps we do. We come from a long time ago. And here we are. Our famous yellow lines have been serving spectacularly well on the modern day trading battlefield. We told you, that's right, the Romulus Legion told you that the S&P 500, which the cash market is trading right here, was going to meet the 200-day moving average some point in the near future. And here we have the futures market. It has now been colliding with it a couple of times since after we told you that was going to happen. And we mentioned this some time ago, before the Iranian-American-Israeli situation got underway. Now we go back to the S&P cash market, if I may. Futures are trading up today, so we will not see an exact touch in the cash market to that 200-day moving average, at least not at the open. Who knows what happens with the remainder of the day. It's a quiet day today in terms of news. You could see Monday, March 16th. That's today, day before one of my favorite holidays. I never did get to go over and conquer Ireland. Took England down, but never ventured across the further sea into the Emerald Island. But nothing really going on news-wise. Tomorrow, on the 17th, on St. Patrick's Day, nothing really happening there. It all goes on Wednesday. What goes on Wednesday? The Federal Reserve is hosting a meeting, one of its frequent meetings. It does so every 6 weeks or so. They will not, I repeat, they will not change interest rates. How do we know that? Well, the Romulus Legion is fully aware of how we know that. Join up and you can learn that too. But one of the ways is high oil prices. And last week we touched on a couple of different areas, sectors, groups that you can start analyzing and paying close attention to get way ahead of, well, everyone else you know in the entire world when it comes to if and when, well, more a question of when than if, this war will start to change direction, full out peace, a slowdown of hostilities, an increasing of hostilities. Again, we went through a list of sectors, groups, and areas that you can pay attention to. No reason to dig further into that today. Looking at some of the price action over a weekly basis, looking again at the S&P 500, we do see that we are getting close to what could be, if it does break that lower yellow line and the uptrending curving yellow line as well, somewhere in this neighborhood area below these series of lows that have served as support dating back for several months after putting in a little bit of resistance in late summer. That could change the attitude, that could change the mentality, that could change the direction, the intermediate term, and perhaps the longer term direction of the broad stock market. So there's some areas that are coming pretty close that we want to start paying very close attention to. You can see how fast the Dow Jones gave up a decent amount of its recent gains. As I'm looking at this, again, we have a weekly chart. That's why it says W up there. A weekly chart of the Dow Jones right here. And something I remember, old General Romulus has been around for a bit. Something I remember dating back into the 2008 financial crisis bear market, second worst year in American stock market history, 2008. The only year that was worse than that was 1932. I wasn't trading in 32. I was too busy back with business in ancient Rome, but I was trading and investing in 2008 and put up a double-digit return that year. So what we have, though, is 3 consecutive negative weeks, 3 consecutive down weeks for the Dow. I found it interesting that throughout the entire 2008 period, again, that was the second worst stock market year in U.S. history, dating back all the way to 1792, we only saw, this is the Dow, not the S&P, NASDAQ, Russell 2000, or other major or minor indexes, sectors, or groups, or individual stocks. But in terms of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, there was never a period during that horrendous year where it had more than 4 consecutive down weeks. So that's something to keep in mind here. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because one of the more speculative areas, an area that tends to go up when we have a broad risk-on environment, although it's been risk-off lately, and we still see some bullish behavior in one of the riskiest areas of the stock market. That's the cryptocurrency, specifically looking at Bitcoin. Changing it back to a daily, just a few trading days ago, and remember, Bitcoin trades every day, Saturdays and Sundays included. So just a few trading days ago, it broke above the 50-day moving average. You see over here when it fell, and then it came up against it several times before completely giving up, getting smashed, holding at that second lower yellow line over here, and then giving it up again. First time it's closed above there, just yesterday as a matter of fact, dating all the way back here for a couple of months. And the downtrend, let me shrink this and move this around a little bit so we can all see it better. There we go. Everybody have a good visual? Excellent. So we see the downtrend here, and it is still holding place. A couple of hits on this downtrend and a ways to go before it gets there. It'll be about just under 81,000. Then there's a more significant level of resistance. So this first point of resistance, the 50-day moving average, it has successfully cleared that resistance area. It's up against another one right now, right here at 75,000. There's another one that would be 80, 81,000, depending on how fast it gets there. And then a far more important one at 85, 86,000. And then up here, the rapidly falling 200-day moving average, which currently stands at just under 94,000. Other than boring you to death, but then again, hey, I've been around a long time and I've got a lot of time on my hands. Other than boring you to death with too much information, TMI, on the course of Bitcoin, the reason I bring this up in such excruciating detail is because, again, Bitcoin has, over the last 15 years, served as a barometer for more risk or less risk from people and traders and investors that are looking to take more risk or less risk. And what we have is the S&P 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, and all the major indexes. We see Western Europe has pulled back quite a bit. We see the emerging market stocks that have been on a tear for the last 6 months until reaching their peak right before the outbreak of the war on that Friday before the end of February, pulling back a fair amount. So we see a lot of selling in the equities market. Obviously, we see a big run in the oil market. Bonds have been doing very poorly as well since the outbreak of the war, but Bitcoin and most of the cryptocurrency universe, they've been doing well. I mean, even gold, even the mighty gold, so many people fall under the trap. They fall into the transfixed idea that with war and with the stock market going down, gold and silver and a lot of the precious metals should be going up. However, that's just not the case. When the S&P falls, gold typically falls as well. It just usually does so by half. And there's something you will never hear, well, anywhere else in the entire world, right? Go ahead. Anyone watching this who is not currently in the Legion, post in there. Go ahead and post in there for other analysts, big money traders, investors, or research providers that just are telling you what I just told you about gold and silver. And also post in there how things have been going for you since the S&P 500 entered into this trading range all the way back in late October. Tell me how your trades have been going, how your investing has been going, and we'll be putting some comments in there as well. Of course, you can do it privately. If you don't want to post it publicly, you can send me a note directly at romulusteaches@yahoo.com. Again, romulusteaches@yahoo.com. And as we're discussing the potential future of this market, the S&P 500, remember that in the Legion, we always seek consistent returns regardless of market direction. I say this every time I post a video in here, but what does that mean? It means that as the market was going up from the tariff tantrum 11 months ago, we made money. When the market was moving sideways for several months, we made money. And now the market is going down. And what are we doing? That's right, making money. Actually, my trading portfolio ACTA, which that's funny, it means beach in Latin, has given up about 0.5% during this entire correction. Still up 3.5% for the calendar year, which is crushing everything else in its path. So again, tell me how you've been doing since this market has entered into this trading range since late October, and give more details if you want more helpful information and a better answer from me with how things have been going since we entered this correction dating a few weeks ago with the start of the war. So we have Bitcoin acting perhaps as a spring shoot, a canary in the coal mine, but for a positive bullish reaction from the rest of the equity market as opposed to a canary leading to the death and destruction of everyone in the cave. And with the S&P 500 pulling back, if again you look at the futures market, closing right at its 200-day moving average, a couple of touches, and that is something we have not seen since the beginning of May when the market decisively broke out and away from all the tariff tantrum stuff almost a year ago. So as you get ready to tell me how you have been doing since we entered the trading range from late October period, and more specifically how things have been going since the market really started correcting and a little more of a serious pullback since the start of the war, we have to start thinking, what do we do if this continues? Well, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. You wait for displacements. You wait for the opportunities to show up on a more dramatic basis. Even with the pullback, if you look at some of the larger tech stocks, the favorites, NVIDIA, Meta, the Magnificent Seven, as they call it, these stocks have also been going nowhere. And as they've been going nowhere, Microsoft has just been completely hammered. So a reason to stay away from those guys. What about the stuff that went up a lot? Industrials. We mentioned the emerging market stocks, South Korea stock market, from 6 months up until a few weeks ago, the biggest returning stock market in a broad basis in the entire world. Not time to touch any of those right now. Not time to touch any of those right now. So one of two things happens. Either we get good news on the war front, and that's just price starts to break out above falling trend lines. I'll show you one right now that I have a close eye on. You see this one from the NASDAQ futures market. You can look at it. It has a similar look to it on the regular cash market as well. But price has to start breaking above some of these downtrend lines, resistance areas. We want to see that, and that will give a green light to get in. Or we just see a selling climax from the downside, and people just sell a whole bunch of stocks regardless of war outcome. Stocks become cheap enough. Demand enters back into the picture, again, regardless of what might be going on with the war. So one of two situations. Otherwise, opportunistic trading behavior is the call of the day. And I am thrilled to have another opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you folks. This is General Romulus. I will be heading back to the Forum in ancient Rome. I am just a little frustrated with all your modern wars. I want to go back to just billy clubs and speeches and a little horse racing action over in the circus. Consistent returns regardless of market direction. Boy, that's a fun way to go through life, son. See everybody soon. Bye-bye.